So welcome again, and this time I'm going to talk about the presentations, basically what I want from your introduction to business English presentations. I'm taking this material from chapter 6 and 7 of the Harvard Business Essential, the red one, and I expect you to actually read these chapters because this is just a summary, and basically this video material is useful after you read those two chapters, so I'm going just going to go over them very quickly before I'm focusing on what actually I want from your presentations in this class. So to start with, you must of course prepare your presentation. Yes, there are 6 steps, I think, described in the chapter 7 of the HB Red. The first is defining your objective. Second is understanding your audience, and then deciding what to say, the content, and organize that content, getting organized, and then developing effective visuals for it. And then in the last, you should do rehearsing. Now, the first step is to define your objective. You have to ask yourself the big question when you're doing the planning here. We're still on the planning page, planning step here. Why am I making this presentation? And what do I want my audience to do as a result? Now, of course, why you're making this presentation, because was probably the teacher told you so. However, that should not be your objective, because I let you to choose whichever topic that you consider is good for you, and you have to really tell why, for example, you choose to talk about specific products or specific companies or specific success stories or failure stories, and it should mean something to you, and you should focus on that. You should focus on what is it actually you really want to tell people when you choose this topic. So it will keep you getting engaged with your topic. And the worst thing that a person can do when doing this kind of presentation is that they don't really care about their topic. They're just doing it because somebody told them to, in this case the teacher, which is me. And it shows. And try to make yourself engage with the topic, and try to really find the meaning, the actual purpose of why am I making this presentation, which is for yourself. It should be for yourself. And what do I want to my audience to do as a result? Now, your audience will probably do nothing very specifically, because this is just a recorded presentation. However, you should involve them in some way, and we're going to talk more about that later. But still, you do want to get your audience engaged. You have to tell them really why should they listen to you, because there's other things that they can do and other videos they could watch, So why should they listen to you? You should get that first. Why do you want to do it, and why other people should follow you, or should, in this case, watch your presentation. Now, first thing first is that you set your objectives, the first, second, and third, no more. Yeah. Don't get into the fourth objective. You won't have the time or opportunity to do it. 1 or 2 objectives are probably best. The third, if you can manage it, please make it concise and not too many objectives. You have to know what audience, under what circumstances, to really understand why your audience should be getting engaged, and you have to really define what you want to say and how you're gonna say it to make your presentation engaging, and what the follow-up action needs to be. In this case, there is no follow-up action. But however, in a good presentation, there should be an action plan at least. What do you want to do with it after you're telling this? Yes, and of course you have to review possible objections or refutations to your claims and your arguments or your facts that you say in the presentation. Because this is a recorded presentation, your audience will not be able to directly object, but they can still say something about it in the online forums. So this is still an important step to take. The second step is to understand your audience. The better you understand that audience, the more you can customize your presentation, making it more appealing, engaging, and effective in its impact. You have to define who your audience members and what is their relationship to the topic, how well informed they are about the subject. It's better to take it easy, to take the safe way, and think that your audience is varied. Some probably know about it, but most probably not. So give a quick introduction, and make sure you cover all your bases, all your basic understanding, including all the basic theory and know-hows and whatnot. And you should know what they need to know about it. You have to carefully select this. What do they need to know? What do they expect from the presentation when you write that title in the first slide? Now, the third step is to decide what to say. We have to know what we want to accomplish. Yes, obviously. But sometimes we have trouble putting down the actual words and deliver the ideas. Now, it's better to experiment with this, yes? However, to make sure that you can do this with the content and the delivery, you should make sure that key message supports your objectives. After you set the objectives, your key messages should directly support. Try to be on the track, not off the track. Arguments are well developed and understandable to all. It has something to do with how well informed your audience is. And the content is to convince your audience to agree with you. Now, here is what the next explanation for those. Contrary arguments are effectively neutralized. Now, this is an important step, to make them agree with you. Not only do you have to give them, efficient facts, or good facts, enough facts to make them able to agree and to convince them, but you must also look things on the two sides. However, you're not just giving them all the, for example, you want to prove that company A is successful. There is always some contrary to your statement, and you have to do research on it. However, you don't just say those arguments that are against you. You have to effectively neutralize them in your presentation. So, for example, you want to say that company A is successful, but you know that there are arguments out there, not from you, that says otherwise, that company A is not really successful, or that company A is bad. You have to say those things. However, you say those things only with the purpose of neutralizing them. You don't just say them because they exist. You have to neutralize them. And also include only those details that will persuade. If you're not sure, leave it out. If you're not sure about something, about the details, just make a note of it and just leave it out from your presentation. If someone talks about it later in the discussion, then you can discuss it. You already know the discussion about it, the whole thing about it. However, you don't have to pretend that you know everything. That's one. Second is that you don't really have to. It's good to take other people's advice. It's good to accept other people's opinions and criticism if that makes sense to you. So don't be a hard-headed person and say that I am the most correct one and my opinion is always the best. Try to avoid that. Try to accept other people's opinion, but make sure that you know about them before. It's probably the worst thing you can do when someone say something that is really important and you don't know anything about it. This is also the reason why you should always research the contrary arguments that are against your argument. And of course, your arguments must be well developed and understandable, so it has to be well described. And well described, concise, not too many, and very clear, understandable to all before you go to this point. Now, talking about more about the refutation, because a lot a lot of people usually don't include this, and this is always a mistake. Refutations are objections to your argument. You have to give a real hearing to your opposing points of view. Enough, yeah, enough for you to effectively neutralize them. If you don't give enough hearing, enough chance for your opposing points of view, it will just invite people to ask that. And you don't want to do that. So give them enough, but not too much. Give them enough for you to neutralize them. That way you will stop other people who potential objectors to your presentation. You stop them before they're becoming a problem. And of course this helps with convincing people who already agree with you, because they already know you already told them what the objections are, and you're facing them. So there is a maturity in your arguments. You know, it seems like more logical and more mature argumentation. And there are topics that are explosive, sensitive, taboo and all that kind of stuff. The more explosive the topic, you have to deal with them early. The more important it is to state your opponent's point of view, and to do so early. Don't put it behind. If it is very sensitive issue, very explosive issue, deal with them probably in the beginning. That is better, because this will make you if you deal with it too late, your audience will keep thinking about it, and they will not they're in the state of wanting to attack you or wanting to disagree with you since the beginning, and that does not make for a good conducive situation for your audience to receive your presentation, because you keep them in tension. You keep them tense, that they always want to disagree with you because the topic is very sensitive or explosive. To handle the refutation, there are 3 ways. This is from chapter 6. Answer to anticipated rebuttals or disagreement to your arguments. You should always rehearse, and reject your opponent's arguments. This is very essential for controversial topics. There are a lot of instances, a lot of examples that people already prepare something, writing, and then they don't rehearse it, and then when they actually say it to other people, at that moment they realize what they're saying doesn't make sense, or even worse, what they're saying is actually making it more controversial. Like, for example, they try to diffuse controversial topics with a joke. However, they don't practice the joke. They don't ask for other people's opinion. They just say the joke, and when they say the joke, and then that's it. It makes it worse, because the joke actually offends people more. That thing has happened. And of course, you can always mix this 2 approach, yes. And the 4th step is to get organized. There are the Greek 5 steps explained in the chapter 6. And of course, there is the modern 4 parts: the opening, the problem or the need, and then the solution, and then the action. What do you want it to do after all of this is said and done? So let's go to the Greek 5 steps. Just to give you an overview, we start with an introduction. You start with the narrative or the problem, yes, and then your argument, and then the refutation or objections, and then you go to the conclusion. Notice it says conclusion, not summary. So summary is not enough. After a conclusion, usually give more commentaries towards the things that you have said in the summary, and then give an action plan. So the next step is to develop effective visuals, and I'm putting it in here because this is very important. And I said that this presentation is a bit different from the usual academic presentation that you have done, and it is true. But however, these things actually work for every kind of presentation. So 75% of what people know is acquired visually. A picture is 3 times more effective than just words. Words and pictures together are 6 times more effective. Yes, visual aids are important to help your audience maintain attention. Remember facts and understand ideas or physical layouts. You should you probably pay attention that I put these fonts in different color. That's one way to make your text more manageable and more interesting. And eye-catching formatting. Now, you would realize that this slide is actually a bad example of this. This is a wall of text and it's not interesting. Doesn't help you to understand things easily. Therefore, always avoid this. And if you do really have to write a wall of text, try to make variations in the visual so that it's eye-catching, simple and clear. Sentences like this is not very clear, probably go well with points. The worst thing you can do is put a paragraph in a slide. That is just like the worst. So there are 3 primary learning styles basically from your audience usually. Visual, no wall of text like I said, but pictures, simple pictures and diagrams, especially diagrams. It helps you to helps the audience to focus on what is it that you're actually saying and what do you want to do with it. Auditory, storytelling, parables, anecdotes, they draw people attention. They stop making people getting sleepy. Yes. Of course, you can engage in a discussion, debates, question and answers with your audience. This is for a live presentation, but it works really well because when people are listening all the time and they're sitting on their chairs, they don't really pay attention to you. So you should do something like the kinesthetic one. This is very, very effective. Yeah, get your listeners to do something. Make them engage with your discussion. Make them experience it by doing role-playing games, working with models. Models is like graphs, for example, or what-if scenarios. You know, creating representations, something like role-playing, or even just like the book said, just stand up and shout and doing what the Indonesian call yell yell. Yeah, that might sound a bit corny, but it actually works. That actually works. It stops people from getting sleepy and not focused, at least. Now, using images and diagrams and simple animation, we already talked about the diagrams. Yeah, they work much better than just plain text, and you should include simple animation that actually helps with your explanations. You can do it in Microsoft PowerPoint. You don't really need to do something very hard with the animation. For example, you know, this is a diagram. There is this idea 1, idea 2, idea 3, and you expect to get the result out of it. So the animation should show you the process. There is an arrow here. Yeah, and the whole animation helps to focus your explanations and draw people's attention. Yes, so this is you should add them at least. Using colors and sound, if you try to use a color palette, P-A-L-L-E-T-E, palette. Don't just use any colors that comes to your mind. Or if you're not sure, use one theme, for example, blue or green or yellow or red, and stick with it. Stick with the variations of that color and don't give it too much. Sound effects are a bit hard to work in a presentation. Example, stuff like that really annoys you. It really doesn't give you too much in terms of making people focus. Yeah, it can make people really annoyed and you get their focus, but you know, it's just annoying. So try not to do it. And also music. Try not to do music something like this. The music is very distracting. You cannot really say things that over this kind of music because it's loud, it's not into the theme of it, and it's not people like that. You know, there are so many things said in the lyrics that will disturb your speech, interrupt your speech. So try to not to use that kind of music. Loud, distracting, and basically cover up your speech. Try to do more atmospheric music that sets the mood of the audience into what you want them to feel. However, it should not be very loud. Your speech has to be over the music volume. Yes. For example, try this kind of music. It is quite soothing. It's not very loud. Yeah, you can still hear my voice over that music. However, you should also be careful of what kind of mood this music gives, because it's most likely that this gives you a medieval Europe kind of feeling. And well, unless you want the audience to feel this way, you know, it's okay. However, if you're not talking about medieval Europe, don't use this kind of music. There's always that considerations. Or better yet, if you're not sure about sounds and music, just don't use them. Simple, because we really want to hear your voice and hear your explanations, and not exactly listening to music in this case. This is an example of a bad one. You know, the color is all over the place, doesn't use the high contrast. The words they don't really mean anything. The arrows doesn't really explain. Poison the D-A-D, poison the dead. What do you mean by it? You know, there are no uniform style in the picture that is used. This is distracting. And when I say diagrams and stuff, try not to make this kind of diagram very full. So many things are happening here. They don't really help. So what happens if you come across this kind of diagram? Try to, for example, this is the first diagram. This is the second diagram. This is the third diagram, the black one. Try to compartmentalize. Try to cut them into manageable groups. So this is so many things are happening here, and the picture, if you try to explain this in one sitting, in one slide, the slide will not move. So it gets boring. Even though this uses a diagram, even though this is a visual aid, it is not very effective if it's too cramped, if it's too much on the screen. Now this is the example of a very powerful image. This image won a Nobel Pulitzer Prize. Probably you can guess that this picture is in the Vietnam War, a very famous picture. Now this picture changed the whole course of the war for the Americans. So the Americans, they were fighting with the South Vietnamese to help them, quote unquote, against the aggression of the communist North Vietnamese back in the late 60s to early 70s. So if you look at this picture, you see this person wearing American gear, yeah, but obviously not American, Vietnam, and he's executing a civilian. So this picture makes the American public stop their support for the American government's involvement in Vietnam, and that is the turning point for the Vietnam War. You see everything that is wrong here. It looks like the Americans are paying the Vietnamese lackeys, you know, Vietnamese henchmen, to kill civilians. Yes, he was using American pistol, and this guy is wearing American uniform. Both of these guys, they don't look beautiful, yeah, but they look sinister. You know, this person obviously looks like the stereotypical Asian, the racist Asian with buck teeth, you know, with prominent teeth and small eyes and very menacing and evil looking. And they're looking this person who looks very weak and you know, like a civilian because he's not wearing a uniform. However, if you accept that, and that was what the majority of American public think about this when they saw this in the newspaper. However, you don't know the background of this. The background is that this happens during the North Vietnamese invasion of South Korea during a religious religious holiday. And this person is the head of the police, a very high-ranking official. And his men caught this person who is a captain in the North Vietnamese intelligence who is infiltrating this city, and this person, this seemingly innocent and civilian-looking person, was infiltrating. That's why he was not wearing his uniform, and he was caught with his death squad. He was killing a family, killing the father, the mother, and their 6 children. What he did was very brutal. He cut their throats and let them bleed. Let the family bleed. The family was a member of the South Vietnamese army, yes, but he killed them very brutally. And the only surviving person in that family that he killed was a 9-year-old boy who had to who was crying in his mother's lap, yeah, and hugging his mother, who was bleeding to death. So this person is not a nice person. He is a soldier. He is a member of the intelligence, and he is no way a civilian. And this person, knowing this fact, the head of the police, South Vietnamese police, was in a way delivering justice to this terrible person, this captain. So there is the background, but however, this picture is very powerful in that way. So you don't need words to come with this picture. You just show the picture, and people will understand and make things happen. That is how powerful this picture is. So what I said about that was, you should aim for the head with the facts, but you should also consider the heart. You don't just produce specs, numbers, facts, statements, and other numerical data. Try to avoid that. Try to make a memorable picture. Try to at least explain them. Don't just show them and, okay, we see this table, it shows that the product is successful. Okay, that is not a good explanation, even though it is a very factual one and nobody can object to you, but people don't care about it really. So there is always the personal and emotional components, the threat, the opportunity, the life change that your presentation can give to your audience. You must always shift to the deeper personal meaning for the audience. The audience have to be able to see the threat for themselves. What if I say to you, for example, I'm discussing about iPhones. iPhones can take away your future jobs. iPhones can make your life easier, opportunity. It can really change your life, because now you can call your boyfriend or your girlfriend using iPhones. Try to include facts like that. Of course, those are the stupid examples, but you get my point. You have to involve the audience in persuading them. You cannot just see things from your point of view. I want to tell you this. I don't care what you think of it. I just want to tell you this. Those are the really bad approach to doing this. Always involve them in a deeper personal meaning, and you should tell the listeners, the audience, what's in it for them. What do they get from all of this explanation that you give them? And of course, the last step is to do a rehearse, because not a lot of people do this, and it shows. They have only like 2 days to submit the videos, etc. They don't get it. They have things to do, whatever. I understand. However, it will reflect on your presentation. Write a script if you can. Yeah, learn your lines, practice your lines, fine-tune the opening especially and the closing. Those are the most important. If you cannot draw the people's attention in the opening, you lost the game. If your closing is inconclusive, your conclusion goes everywhere, that's also a really big mistake. Practice delivering your lines, especially if you're not good in your speaking or you do not have a very good device to record. Record your I didn't write full here. Record your presentation first, and try to listen it again. Go back over the rough spots, and you can also edit your video in this case. Editing softwares are available, and they're quite easy to use now. If you can do it, that's great. If you can't do it, try to make your deliveries very good. And you should wrap it up, end it with a dress rehearsal. Invite someone other from your group, outside your group, to listen and to give inputs. You can work with other groups, of course, doing this, but not with all of the group. Yeah, and because you don't learn that way. When you do everything correctly, you don't learn. So try to invite some, but not all of them, because you want to get experience doing things. And if you do things very smoothly, there are no mistakes, that's great, but it usually means that you don't get input, and that means that you don't learn. So I think that's all for this explanation. So I hope that makes sense, and I will see you again on the next topic. Thank you very much.